The massive space station called Convergence floated in the darkness like a silver city. It was bigger than Earth's moon and home to the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Today, something special was happening. The Galactic Council was meeting to welcome a new species into their ranks. Ambassador Elena Vasquez looked out the window of her ship as they approached the station. Behind her, 11 other human vessels followed in perfect formation. She had spent months preparing for this moment. The future of humanity depended on what happened in the next few days. "First time seeing something this big?" asked General Marcus Chen, walking up beside her. His military uniform was crisp and clean, with medals showing his long service to Earth. "It's impressive," Elena replied, "but size isn't everything." Dr. Sarah Okafor joined them at the window. She carried a tablet filled with information about the alien species they were about to meet. "According to our intelligence, 47 different species belong to this council. Some have been spacefaring for thousands of years." Elena nodded. She had studied every piece of information they could gather about the Galactic Council. What she had learned was both fascinating and troubling. The Council ruled most of known space with an iron fist. They decided which species could trade, which could explore new worlds, and which had to stay locked on their home planets. The docking process took 2 hours. Human ships were small compared to the massive vessels already docked at Convergence. Elena could see ships that looked like living creatures, others that seemed to be made of pure crystal, and some that hurt to look at directly. "Remember," Elena told her team as they prepared to leave their ship, "we're not here to beg. We're here to negotiate as equals." General Chen straightened his shoulders. "Some of them won't like that attitude. Then they'll learn to deal with it," Elena said firmly. The council chambers were even more impressive than Elena had expected. The room was shaped like a giant sphere, with seats arranged in circles that went up and down the curved walls. In the center floated a platform where speakers could address the entire assembly. Elena and her team were escorted to a small section marked for applicant species. The label made her frown, but she said nothing. Around them, the representatives of 47 species took their places. The Zephyrians were tall, thin beings that seemed to glow with their own light. They had been chosen to run today's meeting. Their leader, Elder Zefka, called the session to order with a sound like singing crystal. "We gather today to consider the application of the species that calls itself human," Elder Zefka announced. "They have achieved faster-than-light travel and request membership in our council." A rumble of conversation filled the chamber. Elena could hear dozens of different languages being spoken at once. Some species communicated with clicks, others with flashing lights, and a few seemed to speak directly into her mind. "The human delegation will now present themselves," Elder Zefka continued. Elena stood and walked to the central platform. The artificial gravity felt different here, lighter than Earth normal. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of creatures that looked like nothing she had ever imagined. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," she began, "I am Ambassador Elena Vasquez, speaking for the United Earth Government and all humanity. We come before you not as supplicants, but as potential partners." The word partners caused another stir in the chamber. Elena could see surprise on many alien faces. "We have prepared a detailed analysis of current galactic trade routes and governance structures," she continued. "We believe we can offer valuable contributions to the prosperity and stability of all member species." This was not how these meetings usually went. Normally, new species would praise the Council's wisdom and beg to be allowed to join their ranks. They would promise to follow all rules and accept whatever position they were given. Elena did none of these things. Instead, she activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. Charts and graphs appeared in the air, showing trade routes, resource distribution, and conflict zones throughout the galaxy. "Our preliminary analysis has identified 17 major inefficiencies in current governance structures," Elena announced. "We have also cataloged 43 ongoing conflicts that could be resolved through economic incentives rather than military intervention." War Chief Gorath of the Krex Empire slammed his massive fist on his seat. The Krex looked like giant lizards covered in armor plating. "You dare to lecture us, primitive species? We have ruled space for 3,000 years. Elena turned to face the War Chief calmly. "With respect, War Chief Gorath, ruling and governing effectively are two different things. Your current methods have resulted in a galaxy where 20% of known species live in poverty, while 5% control 70% of all resources. The chamber fell silent. No one had ever spoken to a council member like this before, especially not a representative of an unaccepted species. The synthesis, a collective of artificial intelligences, spoke next. Their voice came from everywhere at once, like an echo in a metal room. The human presents interesting data points. However, their conclusions assume that efficiency is the primary goal of governance. Dr. Okafor stepped forward. Actually, our analysis suggests that efficiency leads to stability, which benefits everyone. Stable systems require less energy to maintain and produce better outcomes for all participants. She activated her own display, showing mathematical models and probability calculations. For example, the ongoing conflict in the outer spiral has consumed resources equivalent to terraforming 47 planets. Those same resources invested in infrastructure and education could have prevented the conflict entirely. Elder Zefka raised one glowing hand for silence. The human delegation presents unusual perspectives. However, they seem to misunderstand the purpose of these proceedings. We are here to determine if humanity is worthy of joining our council, not to debate our methods. Elena smiled. It was not a challenging smile, but it was confident. Elder Zefka, we understand perfectly, but worthiness must be mutual. We need to determine if this council is worthy of humanity's membership. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Representatives leaped to their feet, shouting in dozens of languages. Some species flashed angry colors, others made threatening gestures, and a few seemed to be laughing. General Chen moved closer to Elena, ready to defend her if necessary. But Elena remained calm, waiting for the chaos to die down. You see, she continued when she could be heard again, humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and near-extinction events. We've learned that survival depends on adaptation and cooperation, not blind obedience to authority. She gestured to her display, which now showed images of Earth's history, pictures of humans working together to build cities, explore oceans, and reach for the stars. We're not here because we need you, Elena said simply. We're here because we thought we could help each other. But if this council is only interested in adding another subordinate species to your collection, then perhaps we're in the wrong place. The silence that followed was different from before. It was the silence of beings who had never heard anyone speak to them this way. The silence of creatures who suddenly realized that the small young species standing before them might not be as helpless as they appeared. Elder Zefka's glow dimmed slightly. The human delegation will be given quarters aboard Convergence. Formal hearings will begin tomorrow. We suggest you use the time to reconsider your approach. Elena bowed politely. Thank you for your hospitality. We look forward to tomorrow's discussions. As the human delegation left the chamber, Elena could feel hundreds of alien eyes watching them. Some looked angry, others confused, and a few seemed almost impressed. Well, General Chen murmured as they walked through the corridor. That went better than expected. Elena smiled. We're just getting started, Marcus. Tomorrow they're going to learn what humans are really capable of. Behind them, the Galactic Council remained in emergency session long into the night, trying to figure out what to do with the most unusual species they had ever encountered. The next morning came quickly aboard Convergence. Elena woke before dawn Earth time and found General Chen already awake in the common area of their quarters. He was drinking coffee from a thermal cup and reading reports on his tablet. Sleep well? He asked without looking up. As well as anyone can before the most important day in human history, Elena replied, pouring herself coffee from the same pot. The humans had brought their own food and drinks, not trusting alien nutrition to keep them sharp during negotiations. Dr. Okafor emerged from her room carrying 3 large cases of equipment. I've been running calculations all night, she announced. If today goes like yesterday, we're going to need every advantage we can. Yet, the formal hearings were scheduled to begin at what the station called morning cycle. Elena and her team arrived early at the council chambers, to find them already buzzing with activity. Representatives from dozens of species filled the seats and more were arriving every minute. Looks like word got out, General Chen observed. We've got a bigger audience today. Elder Zefka called the session to order with the same crystal song as yesterday. Today we begin the formal evaluation of the human species. As is traditional, council members will present scenarios to test the applicant's worthiness. Elena took her place on the central platform. Around her, the alien representatives leaned forward in their seats like predators watching prey. War Chief Gorath of the Krex Empire spoke first. His voice boomed through the chamber like thunder. Humans, your species seeks membership in this council. But first you must prove you understand the realities of power. A holographic display appeared above Elena's head, showing a star map with several systems highlighted in red. These systems are in dispute between two member species, the Hegemony of Worlds and the Trade Federation. Both claim historical rights to the territory. Military forces are gathering. War seems inevitable. How would the council resolve this conflict? Elena studied the display for several moments. The other council members watched, expecting her to suggest a compromise or perhaps recommend that the stronger species should win. Instead, Elena asked, War Chief Gorath, how long has this dispute been ongoing? 47 standard years, Gorath replied with obvious pride. It is a complex matter requiring careful consideration. I see, Elena said. And in those 47 years, how many ships, personnel, and resources have been devoted to monitoring this situation? Gorath's eyes narrowed. That is not relevant to the scenario. Actually, it is, Elena replied calmly. She gestured, and Dr. Okafor activated a new display showing economic data. According to publicly available information, this dispute has consumed approximately 15 trillion galactic credits in military positioning, diplomatic missions, and economic sanctions. The chamber stirred with surprised murmurs. Few species bothered to calculate the costs of ongoing disputes. The real question, Elena continued, is not how to resolve this conflict, but why it exists in the first place. Dr. Okafor, Sarah stepped forward, her display showing detailed analysis of the disputed systems. These systems contain rare earth minerals essential for faster-than-light drive construction. The dispute began when the Galactic Council established mining quotas that favored established species over newer members. She highlighted several charts showing resource distribution over time. The hegemony receives 4 times the mining permits of the Trade Federation, despite the Federation having twice the population and greater technical expertise in mineral extraction. Elena nodded. The conflict isn't really about historical claims. It's about an unfair resource distribution system that forces species to fight over scraps instead of cooperating to increase overall output. General Chen activated his own display, showing military deployment patterns. Meanwhile, both sides are spending more on military positioning than it would cost to simply increase mining efficiency and provide adequate resources to both parties. War Chief Gorath stood up from his seat, his massive frame intimidating even at a distance. You ignore the question. How would you resolve the dispute? Elena smiled. I would eliminate it. Restructure the mining permits based on population and technical capability, rather than political influence. Establish joint mining operations with shared profits. The conflict disappears because there's no longer anything to fight about. The silence that followed was broken by the voice of the Synthesis Collective. The human solution assumes perfect cooperation between competing entities. This assumption is flawed. Dr. Okafor turned toward the geometric avatars representing the synthesis. Actually, game theory suggests that cooperation is the optimal strategy when both parties benefit from long-term stability. Competition only makes sense when resources are genuinely scarce. She activated a new display showing mathematical models. Your current system creates artificial scarcity to maintain control. But artificial scarcity is inefficient and unstable. It requires constant energy to maintain and produces suboptimal outcomes for all participants. One of the synthesis avatars flickered. Define suboptimal outcomes. Gladly, Sarah replied. Current galactic GDP could increase by 37%, simply by eliminating artificial trade barriers and resource restrictions. That means every species in the galaxy could be wealthier and more secure, without taking anything away from existing power structures. The chamber erupted in confused conversation. The idea that everyone could benefit simultaneously was foreign to most council members. Elder Zefka raised his glowing hand for silence. The Hegemony of Worlds will present the next scenario. A new representative stepped forward. The Hegemony delegate was tall and thin, with blue skin and 4 arms. When she spoke, her voice had a musical quality that was almost hypnotic. Humans, she began, consider this philosophical problem. A species develops technology that could benefit all galactic civilization, but sharing this technology would eliminate their competitive advantage and potentially make them vulnerable to conquest. Should they share the technology or protect their interests? Elena expected this kind of question. It was designed to test whether humans would choose cooperation or self-interest when the stakes were high. Representative Kalanoon, Elena said, addressing the hegemony delegate by name, your question assumes that sharing technology automatically creates vulnerability. But history suggests the opposite is true. She gestured to Dr. Okafor, who brought up displays showing human technological development. On Earth, our greatest advances came through international cooperation. The internet, space travel, medical breakthroughs, all of these required multiple nations working together. But surely, Kalanoon interrupted, some species tried to hoard their advantages. Absolutely, Elena admitted. And those species fell behind. The nations that tried to keep secrets found themselves isolated while others moved forward through collaboration. General Chen stepped forward. There's also a military consideration. A species that shares beneficial technology creates allies. A species that hoards technology creates enemies. Which position is more secure in the long term? He activated a display showing alliance patterns throughout galactic history. Every major power that fell in the last 1,000 years was defeated by coalitions of smaller species working together. Isolation is not strength. It's vulnerability waiting to happen. Kalanoon's forearms gestured elegantly. Yet the hegemony has maintained power for millennia through careful resource management. With respect, Elena replied, the hegemony has maintained its position by preventing other species from reaching their full potential. But that's not sustainable. Eventually, suppressed species either rebel or find ways around your restrictions. She pointed to the trade data still visible in the chamber. Your current system requires increasing amounts of energy to maintain control over an increasing number of species. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. The harder you squeeze, the more slips through your fingers. The hegemony delegate returned to her seat without another word. The questioning continued for hours. Each council member presented scenarios designed to test human judgment, values, and capabilities. The Traders Guild asked about economic policy. The Explorers Alliance posed questions about territorial expansion. The Peacekeepers presented moral dilemmas about the use of force. To each question, the humans responded with analysis, data, and alternative frameworks that challenged the basic assumptions behind the problems. They didn't just answer the questions. They questioned the questions themselves. By the end of the session, the council chambers felt different. The confident superiority that had marked the beginning of the day had been replaced by uncertainty and confusion. Elder Zefka's glow was noticeably dimmer as he called for recess. The human delegation has presented interesting perspectives. We will reconvene tomorrow to discuss terms of membership. As the aliens filed out of the chamber, Elena noticed something she hadn't seen before. Small groups of representatives were gathering in corners, speaking in hushed tones and pointing toward the human delegation. I think we got their attention, General Chen observed quietly. Elena nodded, but she wasn't celebrating yet. The real test starts tomorrow, Marcus. Today they were just testing us. Tomorrow they're going to try to break us. Dr. Okafor was already packing up her equipment, but her expression was thoughtful. Did you notice how the third day of negotiations began differently? When Elena and her team arrived at the council chambers, they found the seating arrangement had changed. The human delegation was no longer seated in the small applicant species section. Instead, they had been moved to an even smaller area marked probationary review. Subtle, General Chen muttered under his breath. Elena said nothing, but her jaw tightened slightly. The message was clear. The council was already deciding humanity's fate before negotiations had even begun. Elder Zefka took his position at the center of the chamber. His usual musical greeting was shorter and more businesslike today. The human delegation has been evaluated according to our traditional methods. Today we will discuss the terms of their integration into galactic society. The word integration made Elena's stomach tighten. Not membership, not partnership, integration. Representative Kalanoon of the hegemony stood first. Her forearms moved gracefully as she spoke. The hegemony has reviewed the human species' technological capabilities Military strength and resource potential. We are prepared to offer junior membership status. A holographic display appeared showing the terms. Elena read them quickly, her expression growing colder with each line. Junior members receive limited trading rights within the inner sphere. Kalanoon continued. They may establish colonies in pre-approved systems under council oversight. Military forces must be reduced to defensive levels only, with 60% of all spacecraft transferred to council authority. General Chen's hand moved instinctively toward his sidearm. The terms weren't just unfavorable, they were insulting. In addition, Kalanoon went on, all advanced technology must be shared with the Council for evaluation and potential distribution to other member species. Research and development activities require prior approval from the Technology Assessment Board. Elena stood slowly. Around the chamber, alien representatives watched her with expressions ranging from bored to smug. They had done this many times before. Every species eventually accepted whatever terms they were offered. Representative Kalanoon, Elena said clearly, thank you for clarifying the Council's position. Now I'd like to clarify ours. She activated her own display, showing detailed charts and graphs that filled the chamber with light. Dr. Okafor has completed her analysis of Council membership over the past 500 years. The results are fascinating. Sarah stepped forward, her tablet connected to the main display system. Every species that accepted junior membership status in the past 5 centuries has experienced the same pattern. Initial economic growth followed by technological stagnation, population decline, and eventual dependency on council resources. The display showed trajectory graphs for dozens of species. The pattern was unmistakable. Each one started strong and gradually declined until they were completely dependent on the council for survival. More interesting, Dr. Okafor continued, is what happens to species that refuse membership entirely. Their growth rates are consistently higher than council members, their technology advances faster, and their populations remain stable or increase. War Chief Gorath slammed his fist down. Lies, council membership provides security and stability. Elena turned toward the Krex leader. War Chief, your own species is an interesting case study. The Krex Empire was founded 800 years ago by refugees fleeing council territory. In less than a century, you built the second largest military force in known space. She gestured to the display, which now showed Krex expansion patterns. Your success only declined after joining the council 50 years ago. Since then, your territory has shrunk by 12% and your population growth has stagnated. Gorath's reptilian features twisted with rage, but he didn't deny the facts. The chamber buzzed with nervous conversation. Many representatives were looking at the data with obvious discomfort. Elder Zefka's glow flickered. The human delegation appears to misunderstand the nature of council membership. We offer protection, guidance, and access to galactic civilization. These benefits require certain responsibilities. Elena smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Elder Zefka, let me make sure I understand correctly. You're offering to protect us from threats that don't exist, guide us toward goals we haven't chosen, and give us access to a civilization we're already part of. In exchange, we surrender our independence. Our military, our technology, and our right to make our own decisions. She paused, looking around the chamber at dozens of alien faces. With all due respect, that's not membership. That's conquest with paperwork. The silence that followed was absolute. No species had ever described council membership in such terms. And certainly no applicant species had ever done so in the council chambers themselves. The Synthesis Collective spoke, their voice echoing from multiple points around the chamber. The human analysis contains logical inconsistencies. Council membership has produced stability for 3 millennia. General Chen stepped forward. Stability for whom? Your data shows constant conflicts, resource wars, and species extinctions. If this is stability, I'd hate to see chaos. He activated his own display showing military conflict patterns across council space. In the past century alone, you've had 47 major wars, 312 border skirmishes, and 15 species have gone extinct due to resource depletion. Elena added, meanwhile, in non-council space we see fewer conflicts, faster technological advancement, and higher quality of life indices across the board. Representative Kalanoon stood again, all 4 arms gesturing emphatically. The human species demonstrates exactly why council oversight is necessary. Your aggressive nature and confrontational attitude prove you need guidance. Elena turned to face her directly. Representative, in the past 72 hours, how many times has humanity threatened violence? How many weapons have we drawn? How many times have we insulted or attacked other species? Kalanoon's blue skin darkened slightly. She had no answer. Now, Elena continued, how many times have council members made threats, displayed weapons, or used insulting language during these same discussions? The point was made. Even during these negotiations, the civilized council members had been more aggressive than the primitive humans. Elder Zefka raised his glowing hand. Enough, the council has made its offer. Will humanity accept junior membership or not? Elena looked at her team. General Chen gave a slight nod. Dr. Okafor was already packing her equipment. The decision had been made before they entered the chamber. Elder Zefka, members of the Galactic Council, thank you for your time and consideration, Elena said formally. After careful review, humanity must decline your generous offer. The chamber exploded in shocked voices, angry shouts, and confused questions. Elena waited for the noise to die down before continuing. We came here hoping to find partners interested in mutual cooperation and shared prosperity. Instead, we found an organization dedicated to maintaining its own power through the systematic suppression of emerging species. She gestured to the data still displayed around the chamber. The evidence is clear. Council membership is not beneficial for new species. It's beneficial for old species who want to maintain their advantages. War Chief Gorath stood up, his massive form intimidating even across the vast chamber. You dare refuse the council? No species has ever been foolish enough to reject our protection. Elena's smile was calm and confident. War Chief, we don't need your protection. We need partners, allies, and friends. Since the council isn't interested in providing those things, we'll look elsewhere. General Chen stepped forward. The galaxy is a big place. There are many species who might be interested in genuine cooperation, rather than domination disguised as membership. Elena began walking toward the exit. We thank the council for this educational experience. It's been very enlightening to see how you operate. Elder Zefka's voice called after them. Wait, you cannot simply leave. The council's decision is final. Elena paused at the chamber's exit and turned back. Elder Zefka, you're absolutely right. Your decision is final, and so is ours. She looked around the chamber one last time, meeting the eyes of representatives from dozens of species. Some looked angry, others confused, and a few seemed almost impressed. The human delegation is returning to our ships, Elena announced. We'll be departing Convergence within the hour. Any species interested in discussing genuine partnership is welcome to contact us directly. As the three humans left the chamber, the noise behind them grew deafening. Elena could hear angry shouts, confused questions, and what sounded like several arguments breaking out simultaneously. Well, General Chen said as they walked through the corridor toward their docking bay. That could have gone worse. Dr. Okafor looked up from her tablet. Actually, it went exactly as we hoped. The data we gathered here will be invaluable for future negotiations. Elena nodded. And we send a message that will travel throughout the galaxy faster than any ship. Humanity doesn't accept unfair deals, even from ancient galactic powers. Behind them, the Galactic Council remained in emergency session, trying to figure out what to do with the first species in 3,000 years that had dared to walk away from their table. But Elena wasn't thinking about the Council. 3 weeks after leaving Convergence, Elena stood on the bridge of the human flagship watching another alien vessel approach. It was the 5th ship to request a meeting since they had departed Council space, and unlike the first 4, this one flew the colors of a Council member species. They're requesting permission to come aboard, reported Communications Officer Martinez. Ship identifies itself as the Wanderer's Dream, registered to the Kith Collective. General Chen frowned. The Kith were rejected for council membership, weren't they? That's right, Dr. Okafor confirmed, checking her files. Application rejected 15 years ago. Reason given was incompatible social structure. They're a hive mind species. Elena considered for a moment. Grant them permission to dock. Let's see what they want. The Kith representative who came aboard was unlike anything Elena had ever seen. It looked like a walking tree made of silver metal, with dozens of thin branches that moved constantly like living antennae. When it spoke, the voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. We are Kith's secondary branch of Morning Light, it announced. We speak for 17,000 minds across 41 vessels. Elena stepped forward. I'm Ambassador Vasquez. Welcome aboard. What can we do for you? You can explain why you refused the council, the Kith replied. Word travels fast through hyperspace. Every species in 3 sectors knows what happened at Convergence. Elena gestured toward the conference room. It's a long story. Would you like to hear it? 2 hours later, the Kith representatives' branches were moving much faster than when it had arrived. Elena had shared everything: the council's test questions, their analysis of galactic governance, and the terms offered for junior membership. Fascinating, the Kith said. The council told us we were rejected because hive minds cannot participate in individual-based democracy. But your data suggests the real reason was our efficiency at resource processing. Dr. Okafor nodded. Your species could revolutionize mining and manufacturing throughout the galaxy. That would threaten several council member species who currently control those industries. Indeed. The Kith's branches swayed thoughtfully. We have wondered why species with inferior technology were accepted while we were not. Now we understand. General Chen leaned forward. What do you think would happen if rejected species started working together instead of trying to join the council? The Kith was quiet for several minutes, its branches moving in complex patterns. Elena realized it was consulting with the collective consciousness that connected all Kith minds. We think, it said finally, that such cooperation would be highly beneficial for all participants. We also think the council would view it as a threat to their authority. Elena smiled. Would that concern you? The Kith Collective has survived for 800 years without council protection. We are not afraid of their disapproval. That evening, Elena held a video conference with Earth. President Chen, no relation to General Chen, listened carefully as Elena described their progress. So far, we've had productive conversations with the Wandering Fleets, the Broken Chain Coalition, the Independent Miners, and now the Kith Collective, Elena reported. All of them are interested in some form of cooperative arrangement. The president looked tired. Elena realized it was late at night in Washington. What kind of arrangement are we talking about, Ambassador? Trade agreements, technology sharing, mutual defense pacts, the basic framework for an alliance of equals. Nothing like the Council's hierarchy system. And you think this will work? Elena glanced at her team. Mr. President, the species we've talked to represent enormous untapped potential. The Kith alone could increase galactic manufacturing capacity by 40%. The Wandering Fleets control trade routes the Council doesn't even know exist. Dr. Okafor added, our preliminary calculations suggest that a cooperation-based alliance could outcompete the Council economically within 20 years. The president was quiet for a moment. What's the Council's reaction been? General Chen answered that question. Mixed. Some members are angry, others are confused. But intelligence suggests several species are questioning why they need Council membership if humanity can thrive without it. Elena leaned forward. Sir, we're getting requests for meetings from species throughout non-council space. Word is spreading that there's an alternative to the council system. What about military threats? None so far, General Chen reported. The council talks tough, but they've never had to deal with species that refuse to be intimidated. They're not sure how to respond. The president nodded slowly. All right, Ambassador. Continue with your mission, but be careful. Empires don't like being ignored. 2 days later, Elena's caution proved justified. The human fleet was approached by a council military patrol, 6 heavily armed ships led by a Krex battlecruiser. Human vessels, came the transmission from War Chief Gorath himself. You are ordered to halt and prepare for inspection. Elena took the communication in her ready room. On the screen, Gorath looked even more intimidating than he had in person. War Chief, she said politely, we're in neutral space. By what authority do you order us to halt? By Council Resolution 2847 Alpha, Gorath snarled. All vessels carrying restricted technology must submit to inspection. Elena smiled. And what restricted technology would that be? Gorath's eyes narrowed. Your faster-than-light drives use technology derived from Council databases. That makes them Council property. It was a transparent excuse and everyone knew it. FTL technology had been independently developed by dozens of species throughout galactic history. War Chief, Elena said calmly, human FTL drives were developed entirely through our own research. We have the complete development records if you'd like to review them. I don't care about your records, Gorth roared. You will submit to inspection or face the consequences. Elena's expression didn't change. And those consequences would be? For a moment, Gorth seemed taken aback. He was used to species backing down when threatened with Council military action. You would resist inspection by Council forces? Elena shrugged. War Chief, you have 6 ships. We have 12. Your ships are larger, but ours are faster and more maneuverable. More importantly, attacking civilian vessels in neutral space would be an act of piracy. She leaned forward slightly. Are you prepared to make the Krex Empire into pirates, War Chief? Gorth's massive fists clenched and unclenched. Elena could see the internal struggle on his face. He wanted to attack, but he wasn't stupid. Starting a war over an inspection refusal would be difficult to justify to the Council. This is not over, human, he finally growled. No, Elena agreed. It's not, because every species in the galaxy is watching what happens here. They're seeing whether the Council resolves disputes through law or through violence. She stood up, ending the conversation. Have a pleasant day, War Chief. The Krex ships held position for several hours before finally departing. Elena knew it was a temporary victory, but an important one. Word would spread that humans had faced down a Council military patrol without backing down. That evening, Elena received an unexpected message. It came through encrypted channels from inside Council space, and the sender was listed as Concerned Observer. The message was short. 3 Council members are questioning the wisdom of your rejection. The synthesis is running probability calculations on alliance structures. Change is coming, but it will not be peaceful. Be ready. Elena read the message twice before deleting it. She didn't know who had sent it, but the warning was clear. The Council was beginning to realize that humanity's rejection wasn't just one species making a bad decision. It was the beginning of something that could threaten their entire system. She called General Chen and Dr. Okafor to her quarters. We need to accelerate our timeline, she told them. The Council is starting to take us seriously, which means they'll start taking action soon. General Chen nodded grimly. How long do we have? Elena looked at the star charts displayed on her wall screen. Not long enough. We need to start building our alliance now, before the Council decides to stop us by force. Dr. Okafor was already running calculations on her tablet. If we can get firm commitments from the species we've already contacted, plus the 3 we're scheduled to meet next week, we'll have enough economic and military power to deter Council aggression. Elena hoped she was right, because somewhere in Council space, War Chief Gorth was probably planning a much less diplomatic encounter for their next meeting. The real test was just beginning. 1 year later, Elena stood in the main conference hall of New Harmony Station, watching delegates from 48 different species take their seats around a circular table. There were no elevated platforms here, no hierarchy of seating arrangements. Every species sat as equals. The station itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering. Built in just 8 months by the combined efforts of 12 species, it rotated slowly through space at the edge of the neutral zone. Unlike Convergence, which projected power and intimidation, New Harmony was designed for collaboration and openness. Final attendance count, reported Dr. Okafor, now serving as Secretary of the Cooperation Alliance. 48 member species with representatives from 6 more requesting observer status. General Chen, who had been promoted to Alliance Defense Coordinator, checked his security reports. No Council ships detected within 3 light-years. They're keeping their distance today. Elena nodded. Today was the formal signing of the Alliance Charter, and everyone expected the Council to try some kind of disruption. The fact that they hadn't appeared yet was almost more worrying than if they had come in force. The opening ceremony was brief and practical, reflecting the Alliance's emphasis on efficiency over pomp. Elena, as the elected first speaker, called the session to order. Fellow beings, she began, 1 year ago, humanity walked away from an offer that would have made us junior partners in someone else's empire. Today we gather as equals in our own alliance. Applause filled the chamber, not the formal, restrained clapping of diplomatic events, but genuine enthusiasm from beings who had helped build something new. Kith secondary branch of morning. Light stood next. The tree-like being had become one of the Alliance's most effective organizers. Its hive mind perfect for coordinating complex multi-species projects. The economic data speaks clearly, it announced, its voice harmonizing from dozens of points around the room. Alliance trade volume has increased 400% in the past year. Resource efficiency is up 60%. Conflict resolution time has decreased by 90%. The holographic displays showed charts and graphs that would have impressed even the synthesis. The alliance wasn't just successful, it was dramatically outperforming the Council by every meaningful measure. War Chief Torgan of the Broken Chain Coalition, former slaves who had won their freedom, spoke next. The massive reptilian being had become an unlikely advocate for peaceful cooperation. The Alliance has achieved in 1 year what the Council failed to accomplish in 3 millennia, Torgan declared. Peace through partnership instead of oppression through force. Elena smiled as she listened to the reports. The Alliance had grown far beyond what she had imagined when they first left Convergence. It now included species from across the galaxy, united not by fear or tradition, but by the simple idea that cooperation worked better than domination. The formal signing ceremony had just begun when the warning alarm sounded. Elena's communicator crackled with urgent messages from Alliance Defense Forces. First speaker, came the voice of Admiral Santos aboard the flagship Endeavor. We have Council ships incoming. Lots of them. Through the station's viewports, Elena could see the flashes of ships dropping out of hyperspace. One by one, Council vessels appeared until more than 100 ships surrounded New Harmony Station. General Chen was already coordinating with Alliance Defense Forces. We have 60 ships in the area with more on the way. But if they want to fight, they don't want to fight, Elena said quietly. They want to surrender. Look at the formation. The Council ships had arranged themselves in a perfect sphere around the station, but they weren't in attack positions. Their weapons were powered but not targeted. It was a show of force designed to intimidate, not destroy. A transmission request came through on Council diplomatic channels. Elena accepted it on the main conference room screen. Elder Zefka appeared, his usual glow noticeably dimmed. Behind him, Elena could see the familiar curved walls of the Convergence station. First Speaker Vasquez, he began formally. The Galactic Council demands the immediate dissolution of this illegal alliance and the return of all member species to proper Council authority. Elena looked around the conference room at representatives from 48 species. None of them looked frightened. Many looked annoyed at the interruption. Elder Zefka, Elena replied calmly. The Alliance appreciates the Council's concern, but we must decline your demand. This alliance was formed by free species making free choices. You are harboring criminals and rebels, came a new voice from the transmission. War Chief Gorath pushed into view beside Elder Zefka. Several Alliance members are fugitive species that rejected lawful Council authority. Elena smiled. War Chief, every Alliance member chose to join us freely, just as they're free to leave if they wish. That's what freedom means. The transmission flickered as other Council members crowded around the pickup. Elena could see Representative Kalanoon of the Hegemony, several synthesis avatars, and faces she didn't recognize from dozens of other species. The Council offers one final opportunity, Elder Zefka announced. Dissolve this alliance immediately, and member species will be permitted to return to Council space without punishment. Refuse and face the consequences. Elena stood up from her seat. Around the conference table, delegates from 48 species stood with her. Elder Zefka, she said clearly, 1 year ago, you offered humanity junior membership in your empire. We declined. Today you demand we dissolve an alliance of equals and submit to your authority. We decline again. She gestured to the beings around her. These species didn't join the alliance because we forced them. They joined because cooperation works better than domination. They stayed because they're more prosperous, more secure, and more free than they ever were under Council authority. The Council transmission cut to a side conversation Elena couldn't hear. When Elder Zefka returned to the screen, he looked older somehow. You leave us no choice, he said heavily. Actually, came a new voice from behind Elena. They do have a choice. Elena turned to see a figure she didn't recognize, tall, thin, with the distinctive blue skin of the Hegemony, but wearing Alliance colors instead of Council robes. I am Kala Shem, former representative to the Hegemony of Worlds, the newcomer announced. As of this morning, the Hegemony has voted to withdraw from the Galactic Council and request membership in the Cooperation Alliance. The silence that followed was absolute. Elena stared at the Hegemony representative in shock. The Hegemony was one of the Council's founding members, a pillar of the galactic establishment for thousands of years. Impossible, shouted War Chief Gorath from the transmission. The hegemony would never abandon the council. Kalashem's forearms moved in what Elena had learned was a gesture of respectful disagreement. War Chief, the hegemony has watched the Alliance's success for a full year. Our economic analysis shows that joining the Alliance would increase our prosperity by 300% within a decade. She gestured to a datapad. More importantly, our philosophers have concluded that cooperation between equals is more morally sound than domination of inferiors. We choose the Alliance. The transmission from Convergence erupted in chaos. Elena could see council members shouting at each other, some leaving their seats, others gesturing frantically. Elder Zefka looked like he had aged a century in the past few minutes. When the noise died down, it was the Synthesis Collective that spoke. Their geometric avatars flickered with unusual instability. Query: if the hegemony joins the Alliance, what prevents other council members from following the same logical path? Elena realized it was a genuine question, not a threat. The artificial intelligences had calculated the probabilities and reached an obvious conclusion. Nothing prevents it. Elena replied simply. The Alliance is open to any species that accepts our principles of equality and cooperation. Another long silence followed. When Elder Zefka spoke again, his voice was barely audible. What are your terms? Elena exchanged glances with her fellow Alliance leaders. They had discussed this possibility, but no one had really believed it would happen. There are no terms for conquest, Elder Zefka, Elena said gently. We're not interested in replacing one empire with another. But if council species want to join the Alliance as equals, we'll consider their applications like any others. She gestured to the conference room around her. The Alliance believes in cooperation, not domination. We don't want to defeat the council. We want to make it irrelevant. The transmission ended abruptly. Through the station's viewports, Elena could see the council fleet beginning to withdraw. Some ships departed immediately, while others lingered as if their crews were having heated discussions. General Chen was receiving reports from Alliance defense forces. 3 council ships are requesting permission to approach under diplomatic flags, he announced. Several others are just sitting there. Elena sat down heavily in her chair. In the space of an hour, everything had changed. The Alliance had gone from being a rebellious upstart to potentially the dominant power in the galaxy. First speaker, asked Kith Secondary Branch of Morning Light. What do we do now?